What does YouTube say? It says we're streaming. But does YouTube say we're streaming?
Hold on. Yeah, YouTube is.
Does YouTube agree?
Yeah.
Yes, okay. I think, okay, it says we have an excellent connection, so it should be alright. Sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. I have no idea what went wrong. We should be up now. Please leave a comment if you do. Alright, so we were talking about the Wachowski brothers. Um, yeah, and in particular, Cloud Atlas. Why does that one appeal to you, that particular?
Oh, that's right. We were talking about that, and then you were saying you watched the second Matrix and you couldn't get into the Wachowski
Yeah,
brothers
yeah,
and
yeah.
stuff. And yeah, I totally understand that. And um, yeah, I guess Cloud Atlas for me, I really liked it. I really appreciated the because it sort of bounces back and forth through time. So I'm not just saying something that happened yesterday, but it actually goes back towards. It kind of merges sort of primitive humans. It merges that idea with futurism. So it actually fast forwards so far into the future, and it shows us sort of like an example of what futuristic humanity and society looks like when we go back to the primitive. Because like if you look at society now, like everyone is sort of a lot of people attracted to that whole Viking aesthetic and medieval aesthetic and the old Gothic aesthetic and all that kind of stuff. That sort of will come back, and a lot of people, even the way that they're living, and people are going back to living in these small village type arrangements now because housing in the world is getting so expensive. So people are going and looking into more like earth ships and more very primitive cave-like type ways of living and villages and stuff. But also, what I like so much about Cloud App, it it gives sort of like a premonition or like a snapshot of what the future will look like once we're sort of fast forwarded. A majority of the Western world has gone back to this primitive style of living, but we've also merged it with technology. Um, I guess, and I like it because I don't think technology and that sort of advancement in humanity, I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it's really good. I think social media is a good thing, but I think a lot of it is being used in, you know, for evil, and a lot of it is being used for not the right purposes, to exploit, to exploit people and genders and um, yeah. What is your stance on that sort of? Yeah, because I noticed that particularly with a lot of your work, you sort of you sort of dip into the elements of the past, but it's futuristic. It's sort of blending the two,
Mm-hmm.
retro futurism sort of stuff. Yeah, yeah.
Well, my idea for the concept about the world of Atlas is that it's this 19th century and up to about 1815, the flow of time, the historical events happen pretty much in the same way as we know them. I mean, there's gonna be changes as I write the stories, probably to how things. Because, for example, I want to do something with the Taiping Rebellion. That something happened in China that the Taiping Rebellion is still going. I mean, they. I think what I'm gonna do is that during this also kind of plays into the whole idea of the rifts. So the idea is that it is a 19th century where all these rifts to other worlds are opening up, other variations of Earth. So worlds with very similar continents, worlds with very similar climates to our own, and they may or may not have a human civilization that may or may not be more advanced than their own. And in case of what I think I'm gonna do in China, because I really like this Taiping idea of a kind of like a Christian technocracy, is that what happened is that the Taiping Rebellion happened, and like in our timeline, the French and the English kind of like were neutral during that whole ordeal. Um, kind of not. It's complicated. But what happened is that instead of Taiping finally getting crushed, a disease breaks out, and this completely creates a stalemate. And of course, this disease is also going to be something that emerged from one of these rifts. So that's also one major issue that we're dealing with. That it's possible for diseases to transfer and develop. And yeah, so and then what I'm thinking of doing is that the new French Empire, because the French German Franco-Prussian War, the French win. So the French Empire stays into existence, and they kind of start an alliance with the Taipei somewhere in the 1870s, which is going to have great influences. Meanwhile, due to the crisis in China, China becomes kind of like a protectorate of the British, which is also going to have some long-term consequences. Like I'm thinking it might become like a kind of like what there's going to happen. There's going to be this kind of like autonomous city in the middle of China that becomes kind of like this technocratic metropolis, but it's more or less fair. Well, you have the technocratic Taipei to the north, and you've got like the central authoritarian Chinese government to the south. And maybe the Mongolians are going to make a comeback, who knows. Well, it might actually be a fun idea to have a kind of like Neo Kublai Khan. Yeah. So.
So you were saying, so this is like a theory, like a story that you sort of...
It's a timeline I'm considering. Yeah. Oh.
Yeah. Okay. And so in that set, so China protects the UK, England, and then you've got this central automated state in China. Are you saying that is like an area that could possibly be running a lot of the automated stuff in the world and technology?
But I'm still kind of like.
That's like Grammarly that are doing. You've heard of Grammarly, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Everything's automated. They can do your assignments for you. I even like that's the thing. Like I think in the future with all this automated technology, like the whole concept of AI, they call it artificial intelligence. I see it more as like automated intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
So it's stuff where humans won't have to think, won't have to do anymore because it's automated. I personally don't think that that's right.
Well, I think that, I mean, a lot of people don't really understand AI. I think that it's never going to be able to, for example, do abstract thinking. So it will only be able to replicate, it will only have a support role. I mean, we're going to have to see what happens law-wise because, you cannot copyright AI-generated imagery because actually it's an automatic curator, not a creator. And then, of course, there's like the owners of the AI itself. I'm going to come back to your comments in a moment, Kagemusha. And so I don't know. The AI question is still kind of like a gray zone. But like what I'm very interested in and what also is going to make... well, there are two major technological things that nobody is really talking about. Like it's being talked about in the margins, but not in the conversation itself, is first of all, one of the big blind spots of warfare, for example, in Steampunk is drones, right? I mean, when you look at, for example, the war in Ukraine and how much drones are being used in there. So that's something I am looking into my work to kind of like have a version of that, which also plays into another topic.
Yes, so I understand drone usage and the whole idea of remote viewing.
Remote viewing. Well, remote viewing, but also as a weapon, right? I mean, mostly when people see things about drones and robots, about logistics and remote viewing. But now, I mean, recently Ukraine took out two of Russia's warships with drones, and they've destroyed countless tanks with drones. I mean, we also know the famous Predator drone, which is, I mean, when we think of the Predator drone, things go boom. But in like the Middle East, that's a thing of nightmares, because they know when they hear that particular motor, they know something's gonna blow up very, very near them. So we in the West don't really have the nightmare fuel scenarios with drones yet. I mean, we have seen, which became more of a meme, was the attack on the Kremlin that may or may not have been a black flag. We don't know what happened there, but two drones are sent to the Kremlin to attempt and blow it up. We don't really know because they were shut down. But things like that. So that's a big question, like how advanced are drones gonna be, and for me, what also helps to understand me in that regard is that steampunk for me is like cyberpunk in the past. So, and I especially in the Range in the Machine, I really dialed that to 11. So there's that. Yeah, you were talking about AI. I don't know. For me, AI. As it is now, like I'm using AI to help me do my spelling correction, right? I mean, Grammarly is AI, so I'm using it to make my own work easier, and I can focus more on what matters to me, which is creative writing. I don't want to have to, when I reread my stuff, I want to be okay, and now I'm gonna make it better. Not is this comma in the right spot, or is my spelling correct? Because I'm also dyslexic. So AI, they can now be writers. So I think so for AI, as long as it's being developed as a way to enhance our productivity, especially in the creative fields, I think that's great. AI art, I despise it, but mostly because of how people use it. Because I've been using it a little bit for we're trying to design armors, for instance, for our upcoming book. And we're like, what are they gonna look like? Because we really do not have an idea. We do not really have a theme in mind for it. So we're like, okay, how we're gonna do it? What do these armors gotta need? Where is all the stuff gonna fit? And then it's fun to see. Okay, well, what if we make a medieval armor with a submarine theme? Just
that sounds cool. That
yeah, and then I mean, what you get is crap, but it's like, but that element is nice, or that detail is fun. But I don't know how well.
Don't even get me started on costume design.
Yeah, I mean for that, because yeah, it helps you out of the box thinking, because an AI doesn't have context for what it does. It just I mean, here's a tip for people who want to use AI things, who want to make things steampunk. Don't use steampunk as in your description. It's pointless. There's no, I mean, well, because what it does is look like, steampunk. Well, I see all these convention photos that is called steampunk, so that is steampunk, so that's what I'm gonna curate. Which means you're just gonna get brown stuff, basically. That's what you get.
There's such a stereotype with a lot of that steampunk
Yeah,
stuff.
and I for me that's not,
Steampunk fashion, a lot of it is like, if I've done a search, like whenever I've done a search, it's been like, steampunk fashion, or like steampunk corset or something like that. Just what I was looking for, that kind of aesthetic corset, which I bought one years ago. But yeah, there's so much brown. It's like, it's not all like, I've never thought of steampunk as brown. But that's such a stereotype in the whole steampunk culture.
Yeah, and well, I mean, well, here's the problem with steampunk as a concept, because when you say the word, you can refer to one of three things. You can refer to the steampunk aesthetic, you can refer to the genre, and you can refer to the community. Three very different things. And when you talk about steampunk offers, you get like this very wide variety of topics and approaches and hypothetical scenarios. Like, oh, what if they did this in the 19th century? Or what if this happened in the 19th century? But when it comes to the costume culture, everyone is. It's become cosplay at this point. That's my frustration with steampunk costume culture, because people they want to because the people who are drawn to the costume culture, a lot of them are just there for the social stuff. They don't really. It's how to say that they are looking for a social setting and not a creative community. So they just want to have tea parties in as brown goths, essentially. Sorry, it sounds a bit demeaning, but it's I'm sorry, it's for a large part true. It's why a lot of creatives are so disillusioned with the costume side of things, because they want to try something new, and then it's like, well, you're not brown, you're not steampunk. Like, okay, is this that? For them, they care about the steampunk concept, cyberpunk in the past, and the people in the costume community, they want just this goth and brown decor, and everything that does not fit that thing is something else, and you get like diesel punk and deco punk and whatever, plunger punk.
More subgenres, because it's like a science fiction genre. I
Mm-hmm.
think yeah, I personally don't know a lot about steampunk. I actually came into steampunk from cyberpunk.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was into cyberpunk first, and then it trickled into steampunk.
Now, I mean, that's where steampunk originally came from, the genre. I mean, that's where the genre came from originally. I mean, it were cyberpunk writers writing what they became to know cyberpunk, steampunk. So, yes, the William Gibson wrote Wrench in the Machine, wrote the Difference Engine. And it was because K.W. Jeter, also a well-known cyberpunk author, he was also the one who wrote the Anubis Gates, and in the 80s there were like all these books, and like, oh, can we create a label for that? And, okay, well, it's basically cyberpunk in the 19th century, so instead of cyber, it's going to be steam. That was it, but I think it's a terrible name, but that's in hindsight, from their perspective. I'm like, yeah, it makes sense. Of course, they did not know, they could not predict that there was going to be all these various groups of creatives and people were gonna be inspired by that. And but I think the costume culture in that regard had a negative influence on the genre, because most authors are just authors. They write, and it's like, oh, well, what does a steampunk character look like? They look at the steampunk community like, oh, it's a goth and brown, and that's what's going to be on the cover, and and there's no world building there, and that's like what I'm trying to fix with the Association of Ishtar's aesthetic in that regard, where you're gonna have like this plethora of influence. I mean, I can look it up for you. Igraine's original costume was like inspired by Flapper Girls, where I combined the Flapper Girl of the 1920s aesthetic with that of a fantasy wizard. And and then that's a kind of like a cyberpunk world where they think their technology is magic, instead of the other way around, what you often see. Let's go to some remarks from the chat. Kage Musha, basically a multiverse. There is so much creativity with what you can do. It's a whole sandbox of wacky worlds you can make, like a tree, instead of leaves, it's a bundle of water. Yeah, I'm going for a more hardcore aesthetic, but the idea behind the multiverse was originally that people could insert their own worlds in there. But now I have this entire manual of what I want to see in that particular world, because we're also building a role-playing game with a game developer. So
you're working on that at the moment.
Yes, it's still very young, but the game developer, actually, I hope to have a conversation with him next week about that. Because he's already working on a kind of like character sheet, And so we're still kind of like in the brainstorming phase. Like, can we do stats like this, stats like that? So, like I said, very young, but I am developing a way of how we can brainstorm ideas and communicate ideas quickly to readers. But that's a separate topic. Yeah, it's basically automated intelligence. Oh, your voice is small?
Hello. Hi, Johan. So Jeanie's voice is small.
I assume he means
Um,
low. Oh no. Oh
okay.
god, I hate this. No, I see what happened because of the fucking. What did
Are
it?
you allowed to swear on this podcast?
God, now I am low. I know why. I know why. Okay, it should be fixed now. Could you say something, Jeanie?
Yeah, hello.
Yeah,
Yep,
okay, it's
yep,
fixed now.
yep.
I see
I've
what
just
happened.
repositioned my mic.
It's because of the
Yep.
crash that we had. We had a crash.
Um, okay.
Uh,
I've just repositioned my mic. Can you hear me better, Johan?
I heard you just fine. I heard you just fine.
You can hear me
But
fine.
what they heard was
Okay.
what my microphone was picking up from you.
All right. Okay.
Because yeah, no, it's because of the crash we had. Yeah, it's better now. Thank you, Johan. Johan is, by the way, my illustrator. He also illustrated the
Oh,
comic. Yes, and he's currently illustrating Enwin, which is beautiful art. And yeah, we are talking a lot about how to say yeah, how to shape our world, so to speak. And
I
yeah,
really,
it's
yeah, yeah. No, I really appreciate that. How you, yeah, you keep coming back to your body of work being this multiverse where other people can slot in and expand on that.
mm-hmm,
Yeah, in a lot of the music that I write, I almost each song that I write, I see it as every little song, even the covers that I've done, but I've got a whole album that's coming out that people can buy the CD and everything this September. So that will be available on my website, velvetgenie.com. But yeah, I see every song that I write as an entirely separate new universe.
mm-hmm,
And yeah, I shot this music video recently and it's just come out on my YouTube channel. So for Mr. Nick. So originally I wrote Mr. Nick to be set in this very yeah, so I call it circus. That's like my
mm-hmm.
word.
Yeah,
I
a
don't
dark.
care if
Yeah,
that's my word.
I would call
Even
it dark cabaret, but I know what you mean. Yeah.
yeah, that circus kind of it's a whole vibe, it's a feeling
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, so I in every song that I write and put onto an album, I like to have these almost little kind of similar to how you're writing all these short stories. I like to have all these little sorry, like one multiverse, which is kind of like the album. And then within the
Mm-hmm.
album are these songs where they can take you to different portals or yeah, so I've just finished one album that's coming out and I've just started work on a new album that's going to incorporate more of that, more of those because Velvet Genie is kind of like how you said that you got like a very cabaret kind of feel. I'm not actually into that, but a lot of people do say that some of my music does sound that way. I'm cool with that, but I want to sort of move away from being this sort of cabaret corset wearing artist because
Mm.
it's not me. But
Okay.
more what but sort of some of the themes within that are sort of like this. The thing that I draw from in that kind of arena of cabaret is that sort of vaudeville sort of sideshow
Mm-hmm.
act on this dirty stage where you're sort of one is bearing one's soul sort of thing and one is sort of got this limelight to speak the truth and to maybe get through to some people who are listening and switched on so that's kind of how I see you know what I am doing with the songs that I write and this whole
Right.
sort of theatrical kind of theme is having this spotlight where you're going to listen to me for 3 minutes in this song and I'm going to tell you about my views of what's happening, you know, some personal stories that things that I've learned that can probably help people who are listening or to empathize with listeners or to give warning and to tell a fable with a lesson in the fable. It's like, you know, like in Mr. Nick in this video that I did, it's basically a story about greed and just almost mindless greed to insanity that this figure doesn't even have a face because they're just a personified version of greed. Like they just walk around with this massive ego that just the human part of that entity has left, and there's just this faceless entity with a top hat loaded with cash and just wants more cash, more, more investments, and sees sort of this. So Mr. Nick stumbles into the story is that Mr. Nick stumbles into this world and finds these guardians of the realm, who are these three dancers. And he just sees them. He's like, wow, they're a bit unusual. I think I'll take them for myself, take them back to my weird world, and see if I can, put up a circus and profit from them performing. And yeah, and lots of people want to see them. And sort of, it's basically a song about, yeah, mindless greed and just calling out bullshit and calling
Mm-hmm.
out the truth, and calling out any kind of, wrongdoing. So there is a bit of a humanitarian undercurrent to the stuff that I write. Yeah, and through lots of storytelling, and yeah, a big grand multiverse where people can slot in and sort of find a place that makes sense for them, that they can connect. Um, that's where I find the power in storytelling, and especially short storytelling, is that um, there's lots of different paths that you can take to sort of it's like so many different paths to use to explain something. It's like, take this path. Path didn't make sense to you. Okay, try this path. This path might explain the lesson better. That path didn't make sense. Okay, let's try this one. That's how I see it from my perspective. And yeah, I use lots of I use a lot of folk instruments, and then I combine sort of like a bit of that rock and punk influence. So when we talk about steampunk and cyberpunk, there is a punk sort of element to what I write as well, because there's that sort of humanitarian calling out industry for when they're doing the wrong thing, which is a theme of Mr. Nick, the song that I wrote.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, calling out and holding accountable industry when they're not doing things that are benefiting society. Yeah.
Hmm.
Mm.
All right. Yeah, I don't have that approach to writing at all. I don't know.
Yeah.
I just make observations, I suppose. That's what I think is interesting, but I'm also a big history buff, so I just love to talk about those events, and how they develop and recall, and yeah, I don't know if there was any morality tale in there. I don't know. I kind of love it when people start arguing like what it is they're supposed to take from it, and then I'm often listening. I'm like, really, 3,000 words, and that's all you took from that story? Okay, but yeah, I don't know. Moral. I don't know. For me, morality, you know, binds and blinds, as they say, and that's I don't know why I don't. I don't know. I don't know. I'm just not into that type of stuff at all. It's just I don't know.
That's more me. Yeah, that's just me expanding on where I come from when I'm writing
Mm-hmm.
stuff. But again, like I also so that's my perspective of where I come from. But at the
Yeah, I
same
know. I
time, like
get it. Yeah.
I don't go into great detail about the stuff that I write, because I do want the listener to choose what they get from it. So while I say that I write, stories with these messages,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes people completely miss the message, and I'm fine with that too, and they just enjoy the song and have fun with it. Yeah, and they
Mm-hmm.
get other they get into the story of it, and that's what they get out of it. They just go, oh, there's all these little intricacies and characters and stuff. And so yeah, so yeah, it's really dictated by the listeners to what they get out of it. Um,
Mm-hmm.
there's a deep purpose to why I do it, and then the listener comes in and they put their own meaning
Mm-hmm.
onto it, of
Yeah.
course.
Yeah, I prefer it that way.
Yeah,
Although,
and
because I'm always disappointed on what the readers pay attention to and what I find interesting. That
okay, all right,
that's also a thing.
yeah,
Like where's like all these little scenes there I'm really proud of, and nobody cares about them. That's my experience. with a lot of the response. So yeah,
Really?
yes, it's very interesting to see what people um, put an emphasis on. It's like where there
Okay.
was just this statement about something, and they love that idea. I'm like, "Oh, really? Because that's kind of like a throwaway idea that I needed to get the plot forward.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's very interesting in that regard to see what people recall and take to heart in that regard. So, but I'm keeping a close eye on the time. But we're good. We're good. So, yeah. With that said, it's been a bit of a chaotic conversation with the with all the technical difficulties. So yeah, was there something else you wanted to touch upon?
What was that? Are you asking me if there's something else I wanted to touch upon?
Yeah, yeah. Some other
Uh,
somewhere you wanted to go with this conversation.
no, empty. No, I was happy chatting to you. No, the thing that you just said, it's been a very chaotic conversation. I disagree. I don't. I think it's been uh, very winding, and
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, no, I
yeah.
know.
I
It's fluid, but I'm,
it's
I'm
very
also like
entertaining.
minding all the technical details to make sure everything is working. So, uh,
Oh,
so
okay.
that's for
Yeah, that's.
me,
I,
from my perspective. Like, oh, I need to pay attention to you, but I also need to pay attention to this. Like, ah. So yeah,
yeah,
that's.
look,
But
quite a few times through us chatting, it keep like I can't see you at all now. There's a little picture of your face. It's about
oh,
this big on
okay.
my,
Let
like
me let
if
me
you
see
look
if
at
I
me,
can quickly turn this. Does this work?
it's not you.
Did this work?
No,
No.
it's the
Okay.
same.
Well then, yeah, it happens.
It's
Don't
okay.
worry. On my side, it's still moving. So yeah.
I I wanted to quickly also mention with you,
Yes.
um, yeah, how you called how you called it a theatrical steampunk horror, and
That's how you
that's
called it. That's your name. And it's like
that's true.
ah.
That's actually true. That was just that was referencing one track that I sent you that I was like, that's like me
Mm-hmm.
trying to summarize this song into a few words of a sentence, so you
Yeah.
can quickly label it. But so you're right, I did actually put those words out. I wrote them myself. Theatrical steampunk horror. But for anyone watching who doesn't know what the hell that is, so theatrical steampunk horror was the words I used to describe a song for a music video. Another music video got coming out called the Mad Painter song, and it's basically yeah, it's a really fun, not to be taken seriously at all, very fun little Halloween romp. Yeah, and it's basically about a painter who goes a little bit bonkers in the head. Um, it's a bit of a Sweeney Todd influenced tale. Instead of making the pies, he gets people in the alleyway and he makes paint, out of their blood and stuff like that.
Was
But
they also
yeah,
inspired
so
by
that's what.
Vincent van Gogh?
Pardon?
You also said in the email he was inspired by Vincent van Gogh.
Yeah, so the life of Vincent van Gogh, and it's very much so the life and the story of Vincent van Gogh, and sort of how he was feeling towards that later third part of his life, and then some of his mental health struggles. But I wrote this tale as like a fun little scary Halloween type tale where I imagine Vincent van Gogh going to a psychiatrist and getting help for all the mental health struggles that he had, and actually coming out of that, and he's okay now. So yeah, so that's what it's about. Lots of silliness. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's on Spotify. I should probably put that in the video description so people can give it a listen.
Sure.
Where are there any other places where people can find your work? Because you mentioned you work under various names.
Yeah, so for this sort of genre, so I do have a website. You can go to velvetgenie.com. You can go to my web shop if you want to purchase any music or just read a little bit more about me. I've got a Facebook page. I've got a YouTube channel as well with a few really fun stories up on there that you can watch. So yeah, just Velvet Jeanie on YouTube. And if you want to help support me and help me to cover costs to keep writing and releasing more films, short films and stories and music, I have a what's it called? Not Patreon. The other one, a
Subscribe
coffee.
Star.
It's a coffee link,
Oh,
and people can go there and
yeah,
look at me.
a coffee. Yeah, that's where. Yeah, I know
Yeah,
that. I have one too. I barely promote it. I need to promote my stuff a lot more. So I'm gonna take
yeah,
this opportunity, folks. That if you wanna read my short stories, I've got a website on Ream, which is kind of like Patreon, but especially for authors and readers. And I think the link should be in the video description. You can check out some of the short stories without making an account, but if you want to read everything else, you need to become a follower for free. And of course, you can also support me there, and then you also get previews of our upcoming books and public novels as well. So you can get that like from $3 a month, which for all my ebooks is quite a bargain, if I do say so. And yeah, higher tiers also will get previews of books like Enwin. And oh yeah, that is what I wanted to send you. So yeah, links should be in the description. Kagemusha, so your music is steampunkish? He asks.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, so like I said, there's a very largely punk element to what I write, and then I've got a couple of songs, especially on this upcoming album, and in my second album, which will be coming out probably in a couple of years. But yes, there are steampunk influenced songs. So go check out the Mad Painter song. That's a very steampunky kind of song. And so a cover that I did called Eleanor Rigby, that's kind of a little bit like that as well. Mr. Nick, definitely there are elements. That's more
Yeah.
cabaret-ish type influence. And then a bit of the Causeway song. That's a little bit steampunky as well. And it's set on a pirate ship. You got to film on a pirate ship. Pretty cool.
All
Yeah.
right. So you mentioned that you kind of want to get away from the cabaret image. Does that include the circus image, or how do you? What are your future plans?
Yeah, so my future plans, so like I said, I've started my second album already. So I'm not in that cabaret field, but probably, yeah, a little bit more so in the theatrical. But I
Mm-hmm.
say theatrical and not cabaret, but theatrical kind of realm. So more about almost like a stage show or and theatrical also, with vaudeville influences and circus, really early 1920s, 1940s circus influences. So my next project is, I'm not even sure if I should say, but I should probably, I'll go ahead anyway. I would love to make a short film that's made up, like one long short film that's made up of all almost like a musical that's made up of all the songs that I've written. So that's a new project of mine that I sort of started conceptualizing, and also chatting to a few actors who are very good in the theatre realm. So theatre actors, you got like film and TV commercial actors, then you've got theatre actors. So
Yeah, it's a different
yeah,
discipline. Well, a fun
yeah, and
fact
like
about that, by the way, that the original cast of Star Trek, the Next Generation, were all theater actors.
really,
Yeah, Jean-Luc
I didn't know
Picard and all they all come from theater. Yeah.
that's interesting. I don't know much about did you say Star Wars?
Star Trek.
Star Wars or Star Trek? Sorry.
Yeah, Star Trek.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, the Jean-Luc
I'm
Picards,
not.
and they're all like Patrick Stewart is a Shakespearean actor of origins.
Oh, yeah, I love Patrick Stewart. Yeah, I don't know a whole lot about Star Trek. I know more about Star Wars, but Star
Hmm.
Trek is just like, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
way over my head.
Hmm. Yeah, no, I'm not sure where. I think the guy who played Han Solo, his name escapes me, But no, he was like I think at the time a new actor at the time. So
Are you
yeah,
going back to the original?
the
Do you
originals,
mean
yeah, the
Harrison?
originals, which as far as I'm
Yeah.
concerned are the only ones. So yeah. And yeah, what they did later was basically just underwear models that they pulled from a from a catalog. But yeah, no.
That right.
I mean, it's funny because
Well,
I keep. Why don't I recall his name? The guy who wanted to do Han Solo. He actually wanted to die in the second movie because he didn't want to be associated with Han Solo. It's very
I
funny.
I had that. Yeah, I had that. Harrison Ford you're
Harrison
talking about.
Ford.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, he used to be a theatre actor. I remember him saying that in an interview, and yeah, yeah, and that sounds like something he would say. Like he wanted to be killed off the
Yeah,
second one,
yeah.
so
I
he
mean,
didn't.
originally he was supposed to die in the Empire Strikes Back, and
Yeah.
yeah, then I think, did he do Blade Runner right after that? I think he may have done Indiana Jones, and then he did Blade Runner, which is noir. So
Love.
it's because he didn't want to be typecast as Han Solo in Indiana Jones forever. So it's very interesting how hard he tried to get away from that. Um, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Very interesting. Yeah.
He did. Yeah, yeah. No, I love his work. Yeah, for
Hmm.
sure.
Yeah. He his last
Mm.
thing was his last work was a western. The 18 no the the neo western one that takes place in the current day, where he plays an aging cowboy rancher. Yellowstone.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. No.
Yeah, it's a bit. I mean, it's not bad. It's just, yeah, at some point it becomes very formulaic. Like it's just one miserable event after the other, and it's just okay. Let's see, Kage Musha. I wonder how would a medieval steampunk dieselpunk would look like. Use the definition of cyberpunk in the past. Don't use all this medieval diesel punk. It's just you can have steampunk in the medieval era, and then it's still, as far as I'm concerned, steampunk. But it really depends on the framing of the themes. That's what I'm looking at. Solar punk. As far as I've read solar punk, it is just basically just TED talks, and that's it. It's just TED talks that are framed kind of like stories, but there's like nothing happens in them. It's just like, oh, wouldn't the future be awesome? Like if we do it according to this completely ideological way. So yeah, that's all the goddamn solar punk that I've seen is like that. I don't find it very
Really?
worthwhile.
I just saw
Uh,
it. Harry Potter could be said as spellpunk.
Spellpunk.
That sounds really
It's called yeah.
spellpunk.
There is already a name for that. It's called
Charming Olivia.
oh god, really no, folks, no. Harry Potter's just fantasy. Cut it out. Seriously, don't do this. A game that is self-aware that is a game. I
Ooh.
mean, Star Trek kind of has ideas like that, kinda. Um, yeah, a matter of fact, I mean, most games are aware they're games. I mean, they all. I mean, when you play a game, that's an AI that is aware that it's a game. So, yeah, it's basically just that. Unless you want to like really anthropomorphize it when you get like a sentient game master, but yeah, I mean, I think Star Trek has plenty of that, of similar AIs. Like the Thaw it's probably one of the few really good episodes of Star Trek Voyager, where people who are in cryosleep are trapped inside a virtual world, inspired by their own fears. And it is I think you'll like it. It is like this whole circus atmosphere, and all of their fears and anxieties is like metroposed in kind of like circus actors. and just great acting. It's probably one of the best episodes of Star Trek Voyager. Um, yeah. Um,
Yeah, I never. It's more. It's not that I was never interested in Star Trek. I think I was more pulled to other to sort of other series that were going on at the time. I'm just trying to remember. I know we had that whole in sort of the late 90s, 2000s. We had I can't remember the names for the life of me. But I know that we had a lot of the aliens, so with the X Files, and then we had yeah,
Stargate.
a lot of future. Pardon?
Stargate.
Stargate, yeah, Stargate was one that was in my head before it. Yeah, Stargate, yeah, Stargate was good. Did you ever watch? It's not really steampunk, but a few years ago, about 10 years ago, I really got into Black Mirror. Did you get into that?
Yeah, the first season, but after that, I had a very dark period in my life, and like, yeah, I'm not gonna watch Black Mirror. And then I
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
never really got back into it. I did hear there were some interesting episodes that might be worth a while. There is something else very similar, but animated, called Love, Death, and Robots. Which is very Black Mirror-esque, but harder science fiction because it's animated, so they can go way further. Um, and let's see, so Dark Mirror, Love, Death, and Robots.
Yes. I was
Some.
actually going to ask you because you sent me some info about Anwin. I
Yeah.
was going to ask you about that. Yeah. So what's the whole concept that you've written about this steampunk doll
Yeah.
called Anwin is she's going to save the world and what's the
No,
story
no,
behind
not
that? Is
that.
and is the new
It
Kickstarter?
it's another high concept of mine. I just sent you the image of Anwin, by the way. And the idea is yeah, I wanted to touch upon that as well, Johan, in a moment. Um, is that so? The character of Igraine, she has a doll. It's called Enwin. It's like here. Well, it's kind of like a dark image, but like it's holding Enwin here. It's also unbound for the sticks, the cover, and she has this doll, and it's just a doll. But Igraine is not from the world of the Association of Ishtar itself. She's from another world. Very
Oh,
complicated.
okay. Yeah.
But Enwin is like the last thing she has from her homeworld, so to speak. And she has like conversations with that doll as she's growing older. That kind of like reflect her mindset. She kindly uses Enwin as a conversation partner in her own language because no one else speaks her own language. Um,
Yeah.
and but those conversations are quite frank, where Igraine is being honest with herself, and especially in the bound for the stakes, where Igraine is at the verge of becoming an adult. She has actual adult conversations, and just she's in conflict with the things she really wants to do, which aren't really that smart. And Enwin always points out those things to her in her mind, so to speak. And people really enjoyed that dynamic that she had with that doll. And but yeah, I can't have an adult woman walk around with a doll nonstop. It's kind of becoming
Oh,
ridiculous at some point. And so yeah, I decided to write a story where Enwin has come to life, and now Igraine has to take care of that doll because it's a doll; it can take care of itself.
so
Also,
hold on. So the doll comes to life.
yes.
That's so cool. I love that.
Yeah,
Yep.
I mean there is a steampunk reason for that. It's not a magical doll, um, but yeah, it's oh, that's a interesting one, Johan. I will bring that up. But yeah, it's basically the first book. It's probably going to be called Enwin Adventures in Responsible Doll Ownership, and it's basically about Igraine learning how to take care of Enwin, which is kind of like a combination between a toddler and a cat. And Enwin does not
Sorry,
talk.
I tuned out just for a second there. There's so many. I've sort of lost track. I saw a few more comments
Yeah,
click
yeah,
up, and
yeah.
I'm just
I was
reading.
also looking. There
Sorry,
are
I
some
tuned out.
interesting ones in there. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, the last couple of sentences I tuned out a little bit and I missed that.
Yeah.
So would you mind saying them again?
Yeah,
Sorry.
so basically, it's about this about Igraine having to take care of Enwin, who is a combination between
Yep.
a toddler and a cat, essentially.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Also, Enwin
Between a
does not
toddler and
talk, so it's yeah. But
so the main character who owns the doll, she doesn't talk, but does the doll talk?
no, the other way around. The doll doesn't talk. Igraine does.
Oh, the doll. Okay. Anwen. Anwen is the doll.
Yes.
Yes, I gotcha. Okay. Yeah, doll doesn't talk. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Just imagining that reverse, I was just like, my brain got excited. But okay.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Oh,
Well,
that's
then
cool.
you would. Well, I mean, I mean, there could be a character like that, I suppose. But then you basically get Scarface from Batman, who is this puppeteer who has like an Al Capone esque tranquility, yeah, tranquility. Damn it, English. Doll, and basically he is completely immersed in the doll, and he's just this weakling who's holding the doll, and the doll is making him commit all these crimes, and that is Scarface.
You know what? I never, yeah, there's a few. I got into which Batman? I got into the cartoon when I was a kid.
Yeah,
I
the
loved
animated
Batman.
series is amazing. Yeah, it
The
also has a
animated
reference
series,
to
yeah,
Batman's origins,
yeah.
which is interesting. The Gray Ghost,
Hmm.
and yeah, that's a side topic.
No, yeah, there's a few characters. Yeah, I think I've missed a few characters yeah, from that. Yeah, I don't remember Scarface. I
Yeah,
loved,
he's a
I loved
minor in his rogue
I
gallery,
love the arguing. I loved all the arguing between Harley Quinn and the Joker.
and Joker.
Yeah,
Yeah,
in like an animated
Mark
series.
Hamill
She's
does the
very
voice.
sassy and so intelligent.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, Mark
I
Hamill
think
does the voice for the Joker,
in
by the way.
the films like that, that's my yes, I know from Star Wars. Yep, yep.
Yes.
He's the voice of the Joker. Yeah. That's probably why part of the essence of why he is the best Joker, like hands down. I
Hmm.
think even in the, even can't do words today. But yeah, even in the like live action films, like for me, my favorite Joker is that original, the animated cartoon Joker, voiced by Mark Hamill,
Yeah.
100%. Yeah,
Then Jack Nicholson for me.
he was good.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Do you remember when he was dancing around to Prince in
Yeah.
the art gallery and they were
Yes.
like
Yes.
defacing all the art? Yeah,
Famous scene. Yeah. No,
yeah.
I rewatched it with a friend of mine for a show, and I completely forgot about that film. But watching it back, I'm like, holy shit, this is a good Joker. This is a very good Joker. Yeah, I really enjoyed him immensely. Even though I'm not
Mm,
associating the actor with the Joker at all, but there you go.
yep,
Uh, so
that's
that's
cool.
very
Yeah,
interesting. Yeah. But there are some
that's
some
like a
comments we could go over. Let's see.
something.
I was inspired by Mr. Fut Monkey's Annoying Villager series that the NPCs were self-aware that you are of another world. I'm not familiar with that. There are a couple of series like that where the NPCs are getting self-aware. Goblins webtoon is kind of like that, where a bunch of goblins guarding a chest in a village are getting like, why are we guarding a chest in a village? And they start to become playing characters. That I am aware of. That one I really enjoyed. Hearing Jeanie talking about carnival and circus makes me thinking there were stories about steampunk set in a circus environment. Actually, I'm going there with Enwin. I'm actually going there with Enwin. That's I've already made plans for that, and then I started drafting some stories for the second book on Enwin. The first one is done, and they're going to arcology, and they're kind of Igraine decides to go undercover in a multiverse circus esque thing. And I'm actually talking to an actual magician about coming up with ideas for it as well. But you're free to brainstorm as well if you're interested in that concept. Circus, steampunk. Yeah. Well, actually, circus is kind of already a trope of steampunk. A lot of circus-esque musicians are already active in the steampunk community. Always has been. Frankie and the Punk. I think they call themselves Gypsy Punk, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Victor and the Bully, also kind of in that neo swing-esque, kind of the border between circus and neo swing. I really enjoy them. Johan, I once thought a circus setting would be was too small and superficial. Watching HBO's Carnivale has changed me. Carnivale was a great show, and it got cancelled.
I need to watch that. I need to watch that. Yes. I wonder if anyone has seen the one with Orlando Bloom.
Oh God, yeah, Carnival Row. Yeah, I
Yes.
had
Yes.
to,
I've
I
heard
did a
that.
review on it. I had to watch it the second time. It was like, oh God, this is terrible.
I heard that it was really good, but it looks so heavy and sad. Like that's
It's one of
like
those shows that.
I'm not into that. I think that that takes away the fun of circus. And you know, for me, like circus, I don't think is supposed like There's that comment, Johan. So
Yeah.
yeah, so Johan, you thought that the setting was too small and superficial. It definitely isn't, and there are definitely elements of the superficiality that work really well for circus, I feel, because like you've got that very light-heartedness. We're going to put on a show for you and entertain you and take you away
Mm-hmm.
from the problems of the world. That is the whole point of circus, to
Yeah.
be quite
And
superficial and
that's the
colorful and
problem.
pretty.
My biggest problem with
There's quite
Carnival's Row. Yeah.
Yeah, but there's quite a dark undercurrent and almost like a very there's like this again. I've always seen the whole circus idea as like it's a multiverse kind of setup, I find, because yeah, you've got like, even if you just look at something like Cirque du Soleil, or like, part of the circus is this sideshow. You've got singing performers, you've got, people who back in the day, that really sell people with disabilities and things like that and put them on the stage. There's all these different almost little universes within the circus that really
Mm-hmm.
open it up
Mm-hmm.
to this massive spectacle. Yeah. So
Well,
I've got
the,
to
the
check
the
out,
thing
yeah,
with
Hate Series.
Carnival Row, apart from that, the series overall fails on many levels. Like, it's there's this question like, who are most shows these days written for? And the answer is housewives, because they control the remote in the TV, in the household. And yeah, Carnival's Row is really written for that crowd. But there is also this problem that, like, there are sparks of, especially visually. I mean, the costumes, amazing, really. The writing is like, it can't be more current year than Carnival's Row. Like, if you don't have any reference, if you don't follow the news, like, you would be like, what the hell is this? But it's so enamored with, oh, we need to make this a message show, and oh, we need to make parallels to the world. That's the whole problem with the show, like the murder mystery. When you think about it too deeply, it doesn't make any sense at all. Like, and then there's like all the shocking things about incest and those types of topics. You're like, yeah, this is written for housewives, and that's why also, I mean, I'm not a fan of Orlando Bloom. I mean, when I watch Carnival's Row, I'm like, this. I'm watching Orlando Bloom, having sex. That's why he's there.
Orlando Bloom's new TV show.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Orlando
Orlando
Bloom, the
Bloom's new
TV
TV
show.
show.
What was the goblins guarding the chest called again? Goblins. I think it's spelled with a Z in the end. Goblins or Goblins. So if you look for that webcomic, you should find it. I'm not sure if it was finished or not. That's a problem with a lot of webcomics. Well, and I mean, Carnival's Row got cancelled after our first season, and I can't say I'm surprised. Yeah.
Really?
Well, it wasn't officially cancelled, but I'm not expecting season 2. Like, there is this second main character, I don't even know her name. She's like this fake character, this love interest for Orlando Bloom, because we gotta have Orlando Bloom have sex. So, but it's like, she's the most non-entity I've ever seen in a show. Like, she has this plot, but it just not connect at all with the story. But yeah, go watch my review of it. And the problems I have with the show will become very clear. Yeah, I read the Golden Compass books. They're very good. I'm listening to the what was it? Not the original books, but the sequel book. But it's fantasy. I just can't. I just don't like fantasy. I don't know what to tell you. I just cannot. I don't know. I'm just
Can I ask,
not.
so, so Bonsart, when you think of fantasy, what's the first thing that comes to your head? And as far as not liking it,
Well, the
why?
first things comes
I'm
to my
interested.
head. I mean, as a writer, low concept. As a viewer, something magic. I don't need an explanation. Um, so, and that's why I also make the distinction between fantasy with a steampunk aesthetic and steampunk as a genre, because they're
Fair
very
enough.
different things.
So when you say, what did you say? Low concept. Is that what you said?
Yeah, that's basically the hero's journey, tile, story structure. Yeah.
Low
So
concept. So what do you mean by low concept?
they,
Is
they
that
they
something to do
follow
with like
the
the character?
hero. Low concept follows the hero's journey, so it's very character focused. The world evolves around the character, because it's all about the character growing stronger. So Star Wars is low concept, right? And it's intentionally created to be low, and that's why the sequels do not work, because it's all focused around Luke Skywalker. And now they're trying
Yes.
to turn it into a high concept story. The problem is with Hollywood, they don't know how to write high concept. So, because everyone is only educated in high concept. When you look at story, booktube in particular, I think is very guilty of this. Everyone
Mhm.
only talks about characters, characters, and like,
Yes.
but
Yeah.
that's not how you
I
can
agree.
approach a universe like Star Wars. The comics and books do this way better.
A question just quickly about how you're talking about low and high concept
Yeah,
and sort of the hero's journey and all of that. So with something like Harry Potter, how did you feel about that as a film and a book?
it's an
Did you
interesting
find that that
one.
was a did you find that that was high concept? That's something I would
It's
personally view
it's
as high
it's
concept. What did you
that's an interesting one, because like there is a good balance between high and low concept, because it's always a balance between the two. Let that be very clear. And really, Rowling has really created a world that can work by itself. You can take away Voldemort and Harry and have that world function, right? Um, you know,
very
because
clever
everyone
writing?
interacts with
Yeah.
professors, everyone interacts with school classes, so that world can work independent. You can just have a story in there. You can come up with a random character and have it go to class and have it interact with the professors and do spells and all that, and you
Hmm.
can just ignore Harry Potter. However, the plot itself is, of course, low concept, because it's all about Harry overcoming Voldemort in the end. Um, and originally, I think, does Harry die in the final book? I don't know. I know that was an idea that he talked about. Um, but that would make sense in some way, that Harry would sacrifice himself, because kind of like a Jesus-esque figure, and have then there his journey ends. So in that particular setup, that could work. In a lot of low concept stories, that could not work, because it's all about the character overcoming something, um, and yeah, so yeah, so the plot for Harry concept is definitely low concept, but Roland has like built this very solid concept as a foundation for the world itself. That's I think why Harry Potter is so, and that's kind of like what I'm trying to do with writing all my short stories. That there is this very solid foundation where you can just have a character walk off the white airship and start having a life in arcology that is still exciting and adventurous, with no need for the main character for Igraine to be there or Enwin to be there.
I've never heard, especially Harry Potter, but that's a really good point that you've made uh, about a character being able to wander out of the universe, but the universe still functions regardless of what that hero's journey, regardless of the hero, and
Mm-hmm.
regardless of what is happening on that hero's journey. Like it doesn't uh, like the universe still functions,
Mm-hmm.
and it's dependent upon how well it has been written. And I just, it really blows my mind. Yeah, writing in general. Like it's interesting talking to you, Bonza, because like I'm coming from a completely different
Mm-hmm.
way of writing. I write sounds and music, and you write words on pages.
Yes.
But
And comics now as well. Yeah.
they equally can still paint a very clear what concept. Like they can equally paint a very clear kind of concept. And this idea of a very strong world that's been created. See, if I could quickly say it, like just with music, it's all tonality, instrumentation, structure, chord, all of this sort of thing. Like there's so much that goes into detailing what a world looks like, regardless of what. Yeah, uh, like a musical world looks like, regardless of what character or even um what lyrics are put into that that structure of instruments. So with a lot of the music that I write and a lot of the artists that I follow, um Renaissance is another. I think they were like around in the 70s. So
Mm-hmm.
I like to personally write music where I can take the lyrics out completely,
Right. Yeah.
and you've got the bare bones of a song, but you can still tell what's happening, or you can still walk into that world and
Yeah.
experience all the feelings and have your own kind of story that unfolds from there
Mm-hmm.
when the lyrics are taken.
Yeah. Kind of like
So
good music, a video, a movie music. Does that.
yeah, movie music does that. Yeah, if we look back at like Star Wars, for example, like the Imperial March composed by John Williams.
Yeah.
If you take it out of the film,
You
have a black
still get
screen
the
with
visual
no
representation.
stormtroopers and nothing, you can still see
Yeah.
what's happening, and you don't need
Yes.
any words or lyrics or any visuals. You can still hear that story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
like you
yeah,
can like
I totally.
imagine a movie clip emerging in your brain. Like, okay, this is a scene where this music would be perfect for. Um,
Yeah,
that's.
and there's a snare drum that's like brrrm, dum dum brrrm, which is creating that
Mm-hmm.
march. And even when you take the visuals out, you can see these feet clothed in these
Mm-hmm.
big boots stomping, and you can almost see this cape flapping,
You know who
Darth
are
Vader,
good
and
at
oh my,
that?
you can
Us.
just see that.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, like
Sabaton is very good at that. It's a very popular metal band, and they make a lot of music about war stories, Second World War, but also other historical battles. They have very good music. It's also very interesting. I once watched like one of those reaction videos. I mean, it's like low bar content. However, this was like two veterans listening to the music of Sabaton, and the things they picked up, like, oh, this is that and this is that. It's like, oh, okay. So it's very interesting for me to see, like, oh, was that supposed to really be something? And it's like, oh yeah, apparently. So yeah,
mhm.
they're very good at that.
There
Um,
was one artist I wanted to bring up. You might know this composer. I don't know. It's from quite a film, quite from the. Sorry, I can't do words right now. It's getting late. I need to eat. I haven't actually eaten dinner yet, so I've got to head off shortly. But I was going to
yeah, that's
quickly
fine.
say, there's a there's a composer from the 80s. His name's Klaus Stoldinger, and he's from, I think he's German, and he did the whole score. He's actually a jazz musician. He's a jazz guy, progressive jazz. but he did the whole score for the Neverending Story. And
Mm.
when I saw that film when I saw that whole film as a kid, that that whole score by Klaus for the Neverending Story, the first one, that influenced my music in a big way because it is very universal. It is, it builds, it's a very fable-like, and again, that fantasy element. Um, yeah, again, you switch the visuals off, have no lyrics and no script or anything, and you can just see everything when you hear it. Like, yeah, yeah, that's a really important. That's like it's storytelling. Yeah, with music.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah, and that's a very big part of what I do anyway. Yeah, I
Yeah,
try
that's
to
definitely
have.
also what I want for my own series. Particularly because I want
It's
to make
interesting.
narrative videos where I would like to have original music for, like the White Airship, for example. You know, I don't know. Have you seen the White Airship? Because I keep bringing it up, but I'm not sure if you've seen that one.
The White Airship. Now, this was a story on your
Yeah, it's
Retrofuture,
yeah,
on your
yeah,
other
yeah.
channel. Is that
I'll
right?
send you a link, because that's kind of like the
Yeah.
style of narrative videos that I want to expand upon in the future. Also, let's go to a little bit of some of the comments by Kagemusha. Yes, he wants to like make a series based on a game. My game basically has no magic system. If you want to simulate something like that, you gotta go and level up your science, crafting up a certain number of steampunk wrist fireball launcher. I'm not sure what you mean by that. Sorry. Kaggle or something of the sort. I'm still working on that. Johan Alexander. It's the myth genre, I think. The myth genre focuses on the main hero. Myths are an interesting one. Because myths are an anthropomorphization of how people believe how their history came to be. So that's yes, there is absolutely a hero's journey in that, especially when you look at the story of Gilgamesh. Um, but yeah, it's what they believe was relevant to the creation of their culture. So myths are very interesting. Um, I would need to think about that. Johan Alexander, remind me of a movie consists of video clips forming a full narrative called Interstellar 5555, the story of a secret star system by Daft Punk. Yeah, yeah. Which are you familiar with that? Interstellar
Now, you're
5555?
asking me?
Yes.
You're asking me? Yeah.
Yes.
I'm just reading the point now. Yeah. So it reminds me of a movie that consists of a video. The Secret Star System by Daft Punk. I don't know what that is.
It's
No.
well,
Um,
Daft Punk is kind of like techno musician, I guess you could call it. If you see them, you'll
oh,
probably
yeah,
recognize them. But they
yes,
have
I know Daft Punk. Yeah, I know
yeah.
Daft Punk. Well, it's probably just a spelling thing, but we spell it Daft Punk.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
that might
that's
be
yeah.
a
Now I
legal
know
thing.
this too. Yeah, I'm dyslexic, so my word automatically like I knew that had to say Daft Punk, so I read Daft Punk. But yeah, no,
Okay.
it's
Yeah.
indeed written that way, and they made an anime, in a kind of like a vintage style anime, so which is
Yeah, yeah, I did see that. Yeah, I used to follow that. Yeah, quite a few years ago though. I've lost track of Daft Punk, but yeah, I
mm,
was a fan of them like back in the day, especially when they first came out and that whole uh yes, Daft Punk. Yeah, that's it, Johan. Yeah.
yeah. So they made a full
The
movie about that, about musicians getting kidnapped and yeah, kind of get corrupted by
That's
the
right.
modern music industry, I suppose. Yeah. But they're also very
Really,
theatrical. Yes, yes. Yeah, they're
I'm
yeah,
totally gonna see that.
yeah. I thought
Oh,
you would enjoy
wow.
that. But they've got like
That is
also a lot of video clips about robots trying to become humans and yeah, not succeeding. They've got a
oh,
lot
that's so
of
cool.
high concept stuff going on in both their visuals and lyrics. Um, Yeah, so I guess it's time for us to round it up. I'm sure we could go on for another hour, but I also have to
Oh, easy.
give a presentation. Maybe we can do another one. You said next year. But yeah, if you're
Yeah,
interested in collaborating, let me know what you need. Because I that would be nice. I don't know what we can do together.
I'm excited. Yeah, I think yeah, I'd be totally open to working with you and to yeah, maybe even something because like I said, I'm sort of conceptualizing a short film right now.
Mm-hmm.
And while I write the music and I can do a basic, story with music and that, yeah, just collaborating with a writer who's very well versed and yeah,
Oh well,
a
then
professional writer,
we can probably help each other that way. That would actually be an
100%.
interesting one. Yeah. Okay. I have some
Yeah,
stories with storyboard writing, not a lot, but I have some, and I'm willing to learn. So yeah, let's keep in touch about that. That way we can help
definitely.
each other. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, let's see. Awesome. Checking it out. Right. Daft Punk. Thanks, Johan. Yes. And with that, folks, like I said, Jenny sent me some links so I can add them in the video. What I think I'm gonna do is what I think might be a nice one because I'm also planning the Kickstarter. What I think I'm gonna do, I'm gonna download the segments because it's probably now fragmented on YouTube, so I need to do some editing anyway. Maybe I can skip some of the
Hmm.
parts where you're muted out, or maybe I can enhance the sound a little bit, and then I'll share it during the Kickstarter. If you want, you can write a guest blog, and then we can include your interview with that as
Oh,
well. I think that would be an interesting. Yeah, it's 5 a.m. here.
yeah.
Oh, go to bed. Yeah, go to bed. But thank you for being
Where is it
here.
5 a.m.? Oh my God.
That's probably the United States, I suspect.
Oh my gosh. Oh, whoa. Okay. Good. It's 5:42. Oh my God. You've got some really dedicated.
No,
Good on
no,
you.
no. I am.
Cache mucho. Oh. Oh, bless you. 5 a.m. All right. Well, yeah, I
Yeah,
do have to go now.
yeah. I also need to prepare
Yeah.
for a convention appearance. I'm gonna be live streaming to a British steampunk event whose name currently escapes me.
Oh, that's
Yeah. Well, good luck with the game. Good luck with the game, but do take a rest because you do need to reload your creative energies. Yeah, and for him, for Yowan, it's in the future. He's in Indonesia, so yeah.
okay.
Um, I'll hit you. I'll probably hit you up in a moment. We need to prioritize some stuff, I think, for the Kickstarter project. But yeah, for those who are listening this, please let us know if you have suggestions for possible collaborations or what you like us to work on. So send your ideas coming. And of course, if you want to talk about the Association of Ishtar, please join our Discord. And I recently came up with a nice brand name, Cock and Blocker, which I thought was very clever. But yeah.
Silence on this end. I
Yeah.
don't know what that means. I'm not
Are
sure.
you familiar
Yeah,
with
I don't know
Black
what that
and
means.
Decker? Oh,
No.
okay, okay.
No.
It's a tool brand, but yeah,
Okay.
so never mind.
Oh, okay. It sounds, I kind of think I know what you mean. It sounds clever now that you say that, I guess. Yep.
Hmm.
Okay. All right.
Um, yeah,
Well,
but
I
yeah,
do
the
have to go
Yoan at
now.
least
Yeah.
gets it. But now I have to
Okay.
see. I have to make some funny names for it. Um, and yeah. Okay, so with that, ladies and gentlemen, if you are not following our Kickstarter yet, please do so. I hope to launch in the second half of October. Otherwise, it comes too close to Christmas for a lot of people. But it's also going to depend on the government shutdown in the US. Because I've got a lot of people who work for the American government, and they're like, yeah, I want to support it, but I don't know if I'm gonna get paid in October. So, yeah, it's also gonna be a bit of a thing. Yeah, and with that, folks, we're gonna bid you adieu, and as always, make things your way. Good day.